Our host this evening, Dr. Ishri Ganesh ji, my colleague, young friend, and it would not be out of context for me to say probably young hero. You know who I'm talking about. Annamalai ji, seated on the dais, Dr. Shriman Narayan Sahib, convener of the Vivekananda Nallorvattam, A.P. Muruganandam ji, members, senior members seated before me, faculty, staff, and most importantly, my young friends seated here today who will be the future of Chennai, the future of Tamil Nadu, the future of India, and it will not be out of context for me to say the future of the world that is sitting in this room. So, vanakkam. It's indeed a pleasure to be here today. An opportunity to interact with all of you. And I told Ganeshan ji when I came on the dais just now that generally politicians enjoy a monologue. I consider myself to be not a politician but a public servant. And therefore, I'm going to insist on a dialogue and not a monologue. So I'm going to keep my comments short and then we'll have an interaction between the two of us. India today, my young friends, is poised for transformation. Her journey over the last many thousands of years, Bharat Mata or India as we know her, she has always been at the forefront of contribution to the cause of mankind. In the 67 years since independence, the journey that she traversed was given a new fillip, a new impetus, a new sense of urgency, a sense of purpose by the true Janasevak of India in the form of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And you saw that transformation take place. That transformation that Annamalai ji talked about. Across parameters from infrastructure, whether it is roads or whether it is airports or whether it is railways, parameters of inclusivity with the Ujjwala Yojana, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, our Nari Shakti with the self-help groups, the paradigm shift with the youth, the India that had gone through a brain drain for 66 years, in the last 7 to 9 years, India has gone through a brain gain across the world. And the Prime Minister's resolve to unite all of India, not only domestically, not only the 1.35 billion people that represent her power, but also our Pravasis, our 3 crore Pravasis that live across the world, to make them a guiding force for India as well. And so that transformation has taken place. And today India has arrived on the world stage. We have gone through possibly the worst pandemic that the world has seen in 100 years. But that India that used to be dependent on foreign countries, that used to import her vaccines, that India today has become the manufacturing hub for 2 vaccines and exporting it to 100 countries across the world to save lives. Today, people across the world leaders today, look at India in times of trouble, in times of discomfort, in war times in Ukraine and Russia. India is being looked at for a solution. The Prime Minister sent 5 of us cabinet ministers to safely bring back 23,000 students from Ukraine and Russia. And those countries even stopped the war in between to ensure safe passage for our students so that we could bring them back safely. That is the transformation. And today, as we celebrate our Amrit Kal, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, 75 years of independence, India is poised for that resurgence. And our journey from this Amrit Kal to our Shatabdi Kal, 100 years of independence in 2047, that change that India is poised for, to go from number 11, we have arrived at number 5. From number 5, by 2030, we will displace Germany and Japan and become the 3rd largest economic power in the world. And it should be our common goal that by 2047, India becomes the economic powerhouse of the world. But if that is to be our goal, I will quote Swami Vivekananda here. Swami Vivekananda had said, "My hope for the future lies in the youths of character, the youths of intelligence, the youths of renouncing all for the service of others and obedient, good to themselves and the country at large." Unquote. That paradigm of change across the world in any country, across the world in any society, if it has come about, it has come about because of youth power represented by all of you sitting here today. And India has a reservoir of that youth power. 70% of India today is below the age of 35. We are talking about 90 crore youth power. 90 crore youth power, meaning 3 times the population of the United States of America, 2 times the population of a combined Europe. That is the human resource potential that my youth in Bharat represent for the world. And that leadership, that change will come from all of you. My only words of advice to all of you, as you stand on this cusp of change, having been a youth myself many, many years ago, unlike Annamalaiji, who's still a youth, my only words of advice to you, always try something new. Do not be afraid of change. Change is the only constant in the world. Embrace change. Be a part of that change. Make sure that along with that change, you take up challenges. Always try and work outside your comfort zone. All of you today are in VELS College, pursuing different degrees. Some in marine engineering, some in aviation, some in other faculties. it is as important for you to understand and realize and acknowledge what is it that you are passionate about, as important it is for you to realize and understand what is it that you are not passionate about. And therefore, in life, always experiment. Always try something new. Because all these experiences along your years of youth will all be arrows that you will keep in your quiver. And life has a way of dealing cards. You never know which is the arrow that you will have to use in your bow to make sure that you arrive at the target. So gather those experiences as you go along. Make sure that you try different fields, experience different environments. And finally, there are 2 words of advice that I'd like to leave with all of you youngsters. The first is always remember, as important as leadership is, it is as important to build your team. Always remember that when you emerge victorious, you're only as strong as the weakest link in your chain. Build the resources and the strengths of your team. Always keep compassion with yourself. There's a simple rule in life that I've always kept very close to my heart. For me, marriages are always optional, but funerals are mandatory. Always be there for people in their time of need. When there's a happy situation, you will find many people at a party. But it's important to be there when people need you. Have a spirit of compassion. And finally, when I was at Stanford Business School, I had the good fortune of being taught by the founder of Intel. Have you all heard of the company Intel? How many of you have you ever heard of the company of Intel? Raise your hands. Okay, so that's the chip that goes into computers, right? His name was Andy Grove. So he taught us a course on breakthrough transformation. The last day of class, we had 2 whiteboards in class in Stanford, and they used to slide one against the other. So when we walked in, he said, "This is the last day of class. I've written something on the board. I want you all to remember that, irrespective of which field of life you go into. And keep that with you." And after saying that, he walked out of the class. So all of us were very curious as to what has he written on that whiteboard. So one of us went and slid one of the boards up, and there were 4 words written on that board. They've still stuck with me, and I'm sure they've stuck with all my classmates. And the 4 words that were written on that board was, "Only the paranoid survive." So be paranoid. Wake up in the morning thinking, what is it that you can do different during the day? When you go to bed at night, make sure that you've been able to cover all the bases that you were supposed to cover during the day. And if you're paranoid, if you're committed, if you have compassion, if you have the capability to build a team, success will be knocking at your doorstep. The final words of advice I'd like to leave you with is, all of us live a very, very busy life. You live a very, very busy life in college. Building relationships is important. But most importantly, be honest to yourself. Be honest to the people that you care for. Be honest in all your relationships in life. Because after a hard day's work, always remember that when you hit the bed, the softest pillow will always be a clear conscience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We are really honored, and definitely we would raise up to the level which you have marked for us.
That's not the end of my
Yeah,
conversation.
first
So
part
now
is
I'm going to have a
please.
conversation.
Yeah, that.
So does anyone have any questions, any comments, any queries? The one thing I want you to do is, if you have any questions or queries or comments, when you put your hand up, please take your name. What is it that you do? And what is your ambition in life? So if anyone has questions, first can you put up your hand and then I'll point to you. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir. I'm Anuj Velani from Maharashtra. I'm pursuing BSc Aeronautical Science third year.
And what do you want to do in life?
In life, I want to become a pilot. So my question is,
You want to do something more than just becoming a pilot. Okay? Remember this, that you have to identify what your means are and what your end is. Being a pilot is a means. There has to be a cause that will lead you to. So what is your passion?
to be a change of the aviation industry, to be the face of the change of
Good.
aviation.
So that's the way you need to think. Right? Your end goal is not that you become a pilot. Right? So the end goal for Annamalai ji is not that he's become state president of the BJP. He's going to use that position to change society, to change the way people think. Right? So for all of you also, that should not be your end goal. Your end goal has to be a greater good than that. Because when your end goal becomes a greater good than that, and all those end goals in this room combine, then the potential of India on the world stage rises. So your question.
We as students of the aviation industry have seen various roles such as being a pilot or engineers. But what is it like to be the highest authority of the industry of our country?
My role, let me tell you, what's your name again?
Anuj.
Anuj. My role, Anuj, is to make sure that you succeed. Because in your success lies not only the sector's success, but lies the country's success. And that's the responsibility that I feel in this position. Politicians, regulators need to shed that cap. Our role has to be one of being a facilitator, opening the doorways, opening the pathways so that all of you can succeed. Because if you succeed, then India succeeds. And that's why I want to see Anuj and many like him succeed across the country. And that's my job as Civil Aviation Minister, to open those pathways so that our youth, today, I'll give you a shocking data. In the world today, you have only 5%, just come here. Only 5% women pilots in advanced economies. Huh? In India, do you know how many women are pilots? 15%. And if we want India to succeed, India can chappal baja ke lose everything else but not your chappal. And if we want India to succeed, that power is going to come from India's Matra Shakti. If you and I think that India will succeed based on only 50% of its population, it's not going to happen. And therefore the cause of women empowerment, Therefore, the cause of women contributing to the cause of nation building is paramount in India. And that what gives me great pleasure in seeing the number of my young friends here who are ladies who will lead India to that promised land.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Anuj.
Good evening, sir.
Wonderful. On that topic.
Sir, I am Soumyanitra Datta from Tripura. I'm studying in BSc Aeronautical Science second year. So my question for you is, India,
No, you haven't told me what you want to become.
sir, I want to be a pilot.
Why do you want to be a pilot? You must keep asking yourself the question why. In life, always remember, ask yourself the question why. It's very easy to answer the question what. But when you come to the what, ask yourself the question why. Because when you are able to answer the question why, that is when you will find your true purpose in life. So why?
So being a pilot has always been my passion. So I think if I be a pilot, I will be able to contribute my best in the industry.
Now your question. Netra.
Yeah. So my question for you is, India is expected to be the third largest aviation industry in the coming 10 years, with the passengers movement being the contributing factor. Can you please share with us in what way it is going to be beneficial for the young aspirants like us?
Wonderful. Great question. So if you, Netra's question is that if you look at the macro numbers of the growth potential of India's aviation market, what does it mean for the youth of our country? Right? So first of all, Netra, we are today the third largest domestic aviation market. If you combine domestic and international totally, we are the seventh largest aviation market in the world. Let me just give you a glimpse of where we are. In 2013-14, we had a total of close to about 65-70 million passengers traveling per year. We are today at 144 million. Add to that 60 million international passengers. So that takes your number to 200 million. In the next 5 to 7 years, that number of 200 million is going to grow to 400 million passengers. That's the delta. That's the change that you're going to look at in terms of a growth potential in India. So what does that mean? I talked about airport infrastructure. The fact that in 67 years of India's independence, we had only 74 airports. In the last 8.5 years, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we built an additional 73, taking us to 147. The 148th airport will be inaugurated this month by Prime Minister Modi, doubling it in another 8 years. That's the growth in airport infrastructure. Similarly, with regard to plane fleet size, in 2013-14, we had less than 400 aircraft in our country. Today, we have upwards of 700 aircraft in our country. We are going to grow at 125 aircrafts per year, which means in another 5 to 6 years, India will come close to 1,500 aircrafts in our country. So what does that mean for Netra? What is the opportunity for Netra based on this analysis that I've just done? The opportunity is that as airports grow in our country, in Chennai, we're just growing from 23 million throughput in the Chennai airport to 35 million. First phase I will complete by March of this year, second phase by December of next year. So you're going to grow 60% in Chennai. When airports grow, when the fleet size grows, then you start implanting the civil aviation ecosystem in India. Till now, because we didn't have enough airports, we didn't have enough planes, we didn't need to train pilots. We didn't need that many engineers. But today, because the market is growing so quickly, we need new flying training organizations. We need more AME engineers. And with that growth coming in place, 35 FTOs today growing to 49 by the end of next year, MROs coming in place, you will require servicing of planes. Today, our planes go to Singapore, they go to Dubai to get serviced. The minute you cross 1,000 in terms of your fleet, those foreign majors will come and set up MROs here. Which means what? We need many more engineers in our country. So a plethora of opportunities will open up for all of you. And today, our future pilots getting trained abroad, now with FTOs being set up in India, they'll all get trained here as well. So civil aviation, for example, is a great example of a sector that's actually going to blossom and bloom over the next decade. I have a view that over the next 10 to 15 years, civil aviation is going to become one of the biggest underpinnings of transportation network in India. And why is that? Because we're not going to concentrate only on your 787s and your 777s and your A350s. We will not concentrate on the A320s and the 319s and the Boeing 737s, Maxes. We are looking at connectivity to the last mile, which means we need to grow our fleet of helicopters. Connectivity in hilly states, Uttarakhand, Himachal, J&K, Northeast. Even in a city like Bangalore today, we have a helicopter service from the airport to the city. Bombay, Pune is connected by helicopter. You're going to get eVTOLs. I don't know how many of you have heard of eVTOLs. Electrical vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. That's going to be the new technology. You all are going to be at the forefront of that. And that's the opportunity that will come in an area like civil aviation for the youth to be able to take that forward. Today, we had the first pilot that did the longest flight from Delhi all the way till San Francisco and LA. Lady pilot, mind you. And I look forward to the day when that 15% in our fleet of lady pilots, that 15% is restricted to the males and 85% are our lady pilots in our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
So my name is Manish Kumar Mishra. I am pursuing BE Marine Engineering and I am final year student. I want to become a chief engineer and want to make people aware about this field and want to change the mentality of the people, because in small areas people are not even aware about this field. So my question is to you is that across our country 400 plus airstrikes are present.
400?
400 plus airstrikes were present when Britishers left our country.
400?
Airstrips.
Airstrips, yeah.
So over that, only 147, as you informed us, only 147 has been converted into operational airports. So we want to know that do our government has any plan to expand or to convert the airstrips into the operational airports? So this is my question to you.
So good question. So the Manish, right? So Manish has asked about the penetration of airports. So yes, we have a reservoir of used and unused airstrips, but they have to be activated so as to make sure that they actually become bases to ferry passengers across airports, which is why we've come up with the Udan scheme. The Ude Desh Ke Aam Nagrik scheme looks to connect which airports? Not Chennai and Delhi, not Delhi and Bombay, not Kolkata and Hyderabad, not Hyderabad and Bangalore, but looks to connect formerly unserved or not fully served airports. And through the Udan scheme, again, visionary thinking of Prime Minister. In 2016, when we executed that and encapsulated that, through the Udan scheme in the last 6.5 years, we have built 73 airports because of the Udan scheme, because there's a viability gap funding involved in that. So when you fly from one unserved airport to the other, a certain number of seats the viability gap funding is given by the government of India so as to make that route economically viable for the airline to fly from point A to point B. And through that, 73 new locations have been developed and connected. Close to 1 crore 15 people in our country that possibly never could have imagined that they would fly have availed of this facility because the tickets are sold at 2,500 rupees for those VGF seats. Almost 2,15,000 flights have taken wing because of the Udan scheme. And what's most important to all of you, 3 new regional airlines have taken birth. In India, in the last 20 years, what have we heard about? फलाना एयरलाइन बंद हो रहा है, जेट बंद हो गया, किंगफिशर क्लोज डाउन, एक्स क्लोज डाउन. For the first time in India after 20 years, you're seeing the birth of airlines. Akasa Air has taken birth. Fly Big has taken birth. India Air One, Cessna Grand Caravans has taken birth. Star Air, routes like Mumbai to Kolhapur, has taken birth. So you're seeing the spawning of new airlines happening. You're seeing the spawning of hitherto unconnected routes getting connected. And what we have done in the last bid of Udan 4.2 is we reserved it completely for helicopters, seaplanes, and small aircraft. No big aircraft. So we put out close to 184 routes, 16 for helicopters, 50 for seaplanes, and 118 for sub 20 seaters. So I just flagged off a Cessna Grand Caravan route from Jamshedpur to Kolkata. And so you're seeing what you could have never thought of suddenly happening in India. 9 seaters, 19 seaters today taking wing. And that will lead to the proliferation of what Manish asked me. New airports, new sites that were not connected before. So our thrust is not only on international to domestic. Our thrust is not only creating large airports like Chennai, but our thrust is on last mile connectivity with helicopters, seaplanes, and small planes and smaller airports across the country.
Sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening. I'm Rakshita. I'm from Chennai, Tamil Nadu.
Good to see you, Rakshita.
Yeah. I'm studying aviation second year. My wish is to become pilot. The reason is I want to take that 15% of women pilot to the next level to be greater. So my question to you is, 8 of 10 students of aviation have dreamed to become a pilot like me. However, the ultimate truth is that the training cost cannot be bare for all classes of people. It is restricted to only who can afford it. Will piloting be affordable to everyone? Is that government concerning is about? So if yes, how?
So good
Rakshita.
So good question by Rakshita. How do you take opportunities to the grassroots level? So let me give you an example. The first thing that you have to do is to make sure that you make that opportunity available across the length and breadth of the country. Until 6 or 7 years ago, flying training organizations were restricted only to big cities. Flying training organizations were restricted only to a select few. That democratization of FTOs has today happened. Today, we have gone from, in 13, 14, 20 flying training schools to 35, going to go to 49. Point 1. Point 2, when your number of airports expand, when your number of planes expand in the country, the demand for pilot increases. When the demand for pilots increase in the country, then the demand in terms of registering in an FTO also for training increases. And then what happens? You all will not remember this, but probably Annamalai ji will remember this, even though he's much younger than me. When I came back from Harvard as an undergraduate student, and I won't tell you the year because then you'll know how old I am, we didn't have any of these in our country. We didn't have these boxes in our country. Zero. When these boxes were first introduced in India, they used to cost 1 lakh of rupees each. And if you wanted to use this box, it used to be 16 bucks a minute. Exactly what Rakshita said. Out of the hands of the common man and woman. But what happened in India? The economies of scale argument took over. So what used to be a low volume, high margin business, with economies of scale, when today you have more than 1 billion cell phones in the country, became a high volume, low margin business. And so what's happened today? You can get this box for 3,000 bucks or 5,000 bucks. And what's your talk time? Nil. You don't pay anything for talk time. That's the transformation that takes place with economies of scale. And that's the same transformation that will take place with economies of scale with regard to opportunities for pilots. As the demand grows, as the number of FTOs grow, the fixed costs will fall. When the fixed costs fall, then your cost of your courses and your fees will also fall. 1. 2, it's also important to look at complementary solutions. And what's the complementary solution that the government of India has introduced? How many of you see that object in the air that looks like a UFO? What's it called? That's right, a drone, right? So India has been at the forefront of introducing the concept of drones. And drones, the policy has been identified by the government of India. A PLI scheme to incentivize the production of drones has been identified in India. And the demand has been created by government of India. Why? Because 15 line ministries have been instructed, do all your job using drones. So fertilizer you want to spray? Use drones. Cadastral survey of land you want to do? Use drones. Transporting medicines and blood bank you want to do? Use drones. So what does that mean? It increases the demand for drone pilots. And today, a 12th class or a 10th class passed boy or girl can go to a drone school, get a drone certification in 3 or 4 months, and immediately earn between 30 to 40,000 rupees a month. And we will have lakhs and crores of drone pilots in our country in the coming years. Those are the kind of opportunities that are opening up for us.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, one more. I'm being told by Annamalai ji that I got to cut this off. But let's get another question in very quickly. Any more questions?
Good evening, sir. I'm Sridhar, pursuing BSc Nautical Science 3rd year. I want to become a captain of a ship. Being a captain, I believe that I can take overall command and efficiently transport goods by sea. My question to you is, where do you see in next 15 years the Indian aviation industry?
That's something that what's his name again?
Sridhar.
Sridhar. That's something, Sridhar, that I've already talked about a lot. What I would like to see, in conclusion, if I may say, as I mentioned to all of you, It's important for you all to pursue a degree. It's important for you all to get a qualification. But I think it's extremely important for you all to think beyond that. And as I mentioned in conclusion, I'm going to keep telling you all. Think of what you want to do. But more importantly, think of why you want to do it. And finally, if the answer of why is going to be because I'm going to get a good salary, that's the wrong answer. Salary, monetary emoluments is something that you'll get irrespective of what vocation you choose. But find what is it that you're passionate about. Because if you get up in the morning raring to go to work, and you come back in the evening, completely washed out, you've had a great day, the level of satisfaction that you will experience goes beyond the number of zeros that you'll ever see on a paycheck. And therefore, that passion is something that you need to search for. It's been a great interaction for me. Thank you very much for sparing the time and having me. Thank you.
Sir, Annamalai sir, 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 Annamalai sir, sir, sir.